And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. The messages of inspirational stories is proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. And right out of the gate, we have a free gift for you. The 6minutewebinar.com. We've talked about how great it is. You can go to the 6minutewebinar.com right there on the little ticker tape /free trial. You can fill out the 6-minute webinar for yourself. It will get delivered directly to your email free of charge. And as we say, you be the judge because the proof's in the pudding.
Right. And nobody's going to come after you.
That's right. You don't need a credit card.
Nope. There's not going to be an upsell or anything else. It is simply just that, a free gift.
When we say free, we mean free.
Mm-hmm.
And Donna and I were visiting a little bit before the show there. And when you give your word on something, how important is that, Donna?
Your word is everything because that's where you stand in your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't honor that, nobody will ever trust you again.
Isn't that the truth? You know, you come in this world with your name, and that's all you're going to take with you is your name. And if your word is no good, goodness, think about some of the names in history. And I always like to use the example because everybody can relate to this one here, I think. Let's say that your son or your cousin or nephew or whoever, or the boy next door, he's just a fine young man. He goes off to college. He comes back and he says, I met the most incredible, beautiful girl I've ever seen or known in my life. And you say, oh, beautiful, great. Sit down and tell us about her.
Right.
I met her. No, start from the beginning. What's her name? Jezebel. What would go through your mind?
Well, we often judge books by the cover because Jezebel in society has been linked with a not so nice person.
Yeah, I think she was the wife of was it Ahab? He was the seventh king of Israel or something like that. I forget. I can't remember his first name. I'm close anyway. But she was known to be a very wicked, evil, mean woman. And you mentioned the name Jezebel. Automatically, you've got a mental picture of what a Jezebel is.
Right.
And if that young man said her name is Jezebel, what would you do? Oh, my gosh, we got to save this young man right now. Don't he knows what a tramp she is? But that's also true with your name. Your name is very, very important in life. And it's like my dad told me a couple of times in my life. He says, son, remember, some people bring happiness when they come into the room, and others will bring happiness when they leave the room. Just make sure you're the person that brings happiness when you come into the room.
That's right.
And we sincerely want to give a shout out to all the good people watching us on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, Android TV, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube Live, E360 TV, wherever you are watching us from. Thank you so much for joining in.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about, that's where we are right now. So, we're actually in the studio, but we're broadcasting out of on Facebook too. And LinkedIn, we're there too. So we're just, you might say we may be in front of Grandma's TV too.
Right. We are.
Yeah, that's for sure. Donna, my goodness gracious. We've had a wonderful week. I want to just give a real quick recap.
Absolutely.
And I tell you right now, we had Lars Rain Gustafsson on twice this week. And he's all about detachment. And him and Bill Heinrich, who is the co-creator of the 6-minute webinar, a good friend of mine, Bill and I, we co-host together on the TogaNet radio station on Friday mornings at 12 noon Eastern time. And they're all about coming from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I love what Bill says. There's only two emotions. There's fear and there's love.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, we're born in a world of survival and fear kicks in. We don't have enough for this. We don't have enough for that. and we worry about stuff. But once we release that and we fill it with love, then we tap into the universe. And this week is really mushroomed out because I was sharing on a previous show this week about Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret. You can find it on YouTube. It's about 32 minutes long. I've listened to it many times. And a lot of people, I know you're going to find it interesting. And he reveals the strangest secret. And the big secret is it is no secret. It's just that it's so simple.
Right.
It's so simple. And it's a wonderful place to start because once you start getting rid of all the negative things in your life, now you got room for what, Donna?
You got room for love, for appreciation, for joy, for abundance, for living in an energy space that is meant to be lived in.
Oh, yeah. You're able to live your calling in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may, Donna, I'd like to start the show today with a story about Charlie Ward.
Oh, yes.
Oh, Charlie Ward was a young man. He grew up, he was born in the latter part of the 19th century and became a young man in the early 20th century. But he always felt that life wasn't fair to him. He was born in poverty. I don't know if he ever knew his father or not, but his father was not around. Therefore, as a boy, he would sell newspapers in Seattle. He would shine shoes on the streets because back then it was very common for men to wear suits and ties and hats and nice shoes. And he did all that, and he took his money home to help his mother pay the bills. He graduated from high school at the age of 17. And his mission in life was that he was going to find himself. Okay? Imagine a teenager having an attitude that I'm going to leave home and I'm going to find myself. Well, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful because I guess the senior in the sky knew that, well, I better have Uncle Sam draft Jim into the Army. if he's gonna leave home, we got to have some supervision over him, you know. But Charlie went out in that day and time. It was very common. There was a multitude of people that rode the rails. They were hobos.
Oh, yeah.
And that was who he hung out with. Some of these men were very, very rough. They had this legion that they belonged to. You know, criminals stuck together and you covered for each other. You helped each other and that sort of thing. It was a brotherhood. You didn't snitch to the cops on anybody.
Right.
And Charlie actually went down and rode with Pancho Villa. Well, then along the pathway of life and hanging out with the wrong people, he got caught up in some kind of a crime. It was some kind of a robbery. And Charlie, all the way through his life, on up to his death at the age of 73, he always said, I did a lot of bad things, but I was never guilty of that thing that I got convicted of and got sent to prison over. And the moral of that story is like my mother used to tell me this. She was a country girl and she used country analogies. She says, if you hang around with a dog that's got fleas, don't complain if you get fleas.
Right.
What did you expect? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so in I believe it was 1918, I'm not sure, somewhere in there, 20, Charlie entered prison at the age of 34. He was sent to Leavenworth Prison. And at the age of 34, he was very embittered. Life has not been fair to him at all. He hasn't had a fair shake. All those things. And he made the statement, even though he'd never been in jail before, they've never built a prison that can hold me. Well, obviously, this put the guards on alert with this guy. And fortunately for Charlie, there was one book in his cell. Donna, would you like to take a wild guess at what that book may have been?
Well, back then, knowing what I do about our prison systems back then,
Hmm.
pretty sure the only book that they would really truly have access to would be the Bible.
That's exactly right. So Charlie started reading the Bible just to break the boredom because there wasn't anything else in there to do because he was in a
Right.
cell by himself. And, what are you going to do? Watch your toenails grow? So he started reading the Bible, but little did he know the influence the written word had on him. Now, this is not about religion. This is about a true life story.
Right.
But what he realized was that he stopped hating the judge that sentenced him to prison for a crime he did not commit. He stopped hating the police officers and the lawmen who arrested him and found all the evidence that convinced the judge and the jury after his trial that he was the guilty party. And as his life began to change, the guards noticed a change in him too. He wasn't this hard, bitter man. And he wasn't looking for evil things to do. In fact, he was looking for ways to, make his life more livable,
And
to
fulfill
make the best of a bad situation. And Donna, we were talking before the show, and that comment, I'm trying to think of it about if you're in a miserable situation. Do you remember that when you're in a miserable situation?
Oh, well, that if you're in a miserable situation and that you dwell on it and you embrace that situation,
Mhm.
then all it does is breed more of what it is, negative energy, and you
Yeah.
can't release it. So that everything around you is honestly going to be ugly. I mean, the sky could be the most beautiful blue you've ever seen, but if you're in that negative space, it's going to be an ugly blue.
Mm-hmm. It really will be. And the moral of the story, too, to add to that, is that when you're in a miserable situation, some of you watching may be in, I'm not saying you're in prison or anything like that, but you may be in a miserable situation. Don't make yourself more miserable than is absolutely necessary.
Right.
Because some people, they look for ways to justify their misery. So anyway, he found out that in about 3 months, a guy over at the power plant who was an inmate was going to get released. And he thought, wow, I think I'd like to have that job. So he went to the library there and he started checking out books on electricity and he studied everything he could. And when the guy got released, he goes to the deputy warden. He says, I'd like to apply for that job. And because of them seeing his attitude change, the gut feeling in the warden was, the deputy warden was, I'm going to give this guy a shot. And he went over there and he kept the same type of pleasing attitude. And he was grateful. He learned to give thanks for what he did have. Of course, in prison, what would you give thanks for?
Yeah.
To the average person. But he found ways to give thanks to God and in many ways. And he became superintendent of that. And he had 150 inmates working under him. Well, while he was there in that capacity, there was a guy by the name of Bigelow who, him and his partner, they founded Brown and Bigelow. They were a big publication company. Well, Bigelow winds up in Leavenworth prison because of tax evasion. So he's not in a real good frame of mind, you might say, because he didn't believe he owed the government a dime, and they said you owed him $10,000. In addition to paying the $10,000, we're going to send you to prison. So you can imagine how Mr. Bigelow was thinking, because after all, he was a bigwig in a company.
And to be fair, let's state this: back in the early 1900s, mid-early 1900, $10,000 was like millions.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking big money.
Oh, yeah, because my goodness gracious, I remember as a kid in the 50s, gasoline per gallon, regular gallon, was like 28 cents a gallon, So you can imagine how much money $10,000 was. Thank you for pointing that out, Donna. And so Charlie saw this young man, or this gentleman, Bigelow, and he went over to just befriend him. And he started talking to him about, don't be bitter, make the best of a bad situation. And he really made an impression on Bigelow and helped him. And right before he got out, Bigelow went to Charlie and he says, "You're going to be getting released soon. When you do, if you'll come to St. Louis, I will give you a job." And so Charlie was very appreciative of that. He said, "Because you've helped me so much in here." And he says, "I just want to give back to you." Mm-hmm. Notice how Charlie gave in the beginning with no expectation of return.
Right.
How sweet is that, Donna?
That is the most beautiful way to give.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're giving freely of your heart.
Yeah. And you're not expecting anything in return. What's Bigelow going to give him? His pillow? No. Off his cot. But Charlie got out. He went up there. And sure enough, Bigelow was a man of his word. And we talked about your word being good. Because think how could that could have affected Charlie.
Oh, absolutely.
If Bigelow had broken his word. Mm-hmm. All that negative energy would just go flying everywhere. But he kept his word and he started out working. And I've got to get out my cheat sheet here because I want to make sure I share the information correctly here. He started out as a laborer there and just working for them. And let's see here very quickly. He started out within 2 months, he was a foreman. Yeah, you come on a job, you're the new guy on the block, you're a former convict.
Right.
2 months later, you're a foreman. How does that work, And then he went on, became superintendent. And he eventually made vice president and then general manager. And then when Mr. Bigelow died, Charlie became the president of the company. And under his leadership, even though he was not had any experience in sales except for a little bit, you might say, from selling newspapers as a kid and shining shoes and that sort of thing. But he took that company from a little under $3 million per year to over $50 million. Now, the whole moral of that story, and the reason I want to share that with you, because we hear a lot of young men and women out there, they blame their circumstances. They blame their mom, they blame their dad, they blame their neighborhood, they blame this, they blame that, they blame the other. And all they do is continue to stir up all this negative energy.
Right. They continue to live in it. They continue to exist and manifest even more. And so they can never see the light at the end of the tunnel or the rainbow, if you will. Mm-hmm. They can never see the daily beauty in the world.
Oh, yeah. And I love the way you put that because I know a lot about you and your high energy and all that. And speaking of high energy, let's talk a little bit about some high energy there, young lady, since you're the high energy queen. How about that? She's the queen of high energy.
Well, one of the things I like to tell my clients when they're in, life is going to frustrate us. There's just no doubt about it, guys. We're going to get frustrated from time to time. Things happen. Life happens. Mm-hmm. But for me, I found, and I help my clients with this a lot, find a time when you can go off by yourself. Close your eyes. Nobody around, just you. And go to your memories. Pull a memory out that is one of those big heart memories, right? That fills you up. It could be childhood. It could be, your husband. It could be your children. It could be anything. It could be your favorite spot in the world. Go to that place and let it completely engulf you and wash over you. And when you get into that state, and you can visualize it, it lets the negative out.
Yes.
And it brings you back into balance. And then you can actually see what the problem is in a way to counteract what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, our show is not rehearsed or we don't have any script because it'd be too boring. But when you made that comment about getting off to yourself, it reminded me of something that I had read many years ago, did a little bit. I'm going to start doing it some more, to be honest with you. Shows you how smart I am. But you get a good tidbit in life, and you try it a few times. Yeah, that's really neat. Then you think, okay,
I'm good.
It's kind of like a meal. You need to eat every day, whether you like it or not, or whether you need to or not. But get off to yourself, into your own solitude, and close your eyes. Preferably, if you can, get in a dark room or in a room. But if not, it's not necessary. Close your eyes. You might put something over your eyes. If you're like me, you close your eyes, you still see the light, and you need darkness. But just think. Just listen to yourself, And it's amazing how thoughts and ideas will come to you at that time. And when she was talking about reflect upon a personal memory or something like that, it reminded me of the song I heard my mother sing a lot when I was growing up in the house. That song was Precious Memories. Mm-hmm. And it meant a lot. It still means, it will always mean a lot to me. And it's very important to be able to release things. Even on the radio show today, we were talking about something and it brought an idea up. I remember when I had my manufacturing plant, we had a situation and the thing wasn't working right. And we couldn't figure it out. We were going by the book that the engineers made. No offense to you engineers out there, but I do wish you'd have to pull maintenance on some of the things you design. And I mean that in a kind way, as in hint, hint. Don't get mad now. But it had been bothering me. And isn't it amazing, no matter what it is in life, when you lay down, you go to bed at night, and then you wake up about, like I did, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then
the answer.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And my best way of describing that, and there's probably people out there say, oh, no, Jim, you're wrong. And, if I am, forgive me. But my way of explaining that, during the day, you got all this garbage going on in your mind, and you got all these thoughts and everything racing around, And then at night, all that stuff dies down. And then your mind can say, okay, Einstein, now I can communicate with you. You've been making me wait all this time. So now that you're ready to listen and learn, I can give you the answer.
Well, for some people, what happens, Jim, is it's a filtration system within their mind.
Okay, go ahead.
So think about that. So during the day, we are bombarded with 100 things to do. We have to take care of the kids, and we have to get the groceries, and oh my gosh, I got to stop and get gas and pick up, Junior from softball or whatever, and get home and make meals, and there's no laundry, and I got to get that done. And did I pay the electric bill? And I know that is especially true for women. Mm. We multitask something fierce. And it's funny because it's a difference between men and women. So it's very hard in my expertise on it, my knowledge, at least with my own self and some of my clients. But women have a harder time concentrating on one solitary thing than men do. Mm-hmm. Men are more able to focus on what's in front of them, mm-hmm. when women, because we multitask, mm-hmm. And we've got that going round and round and round our head, washing dishes, watching a show on TV, and then you think, oh gosh, darn it, did I pay that water bill? Huh. Mm-hmm. All right, the insurance is due. When was that due? And it doesn't stop. So when we get to your mind filters through all that. So when we get into bed and we do that, and you lay down in the sheets and your nice comfy pillow and you get all snuggied in, mm-hmm. then you've relaxed. Your body and your mind are letting it filter out and mm-hmm. hopefully letting it go. Mm-hmm. So your creativity can come through, which is what you do, Jim.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's the only time it comes through, ladies and gentlemen.
It is not. Don't listen to him, folks.
When you were telling that, is it okay if I tell a funny story about me? I think you've heard it before, but
Go for it.
we were at a housewarming party way back when Evelyn and we'd been married a few years, and the guy they had a new home, and his little wife, she's a very sweet little Japanese lady, and very clean, very polite, and just the house was immaculate. And someone made a comment about how nice the house is. And yeah, it's the way it is when I leave in the morning. It's the way it is when I come home. She's just an immaculate little housekeeper. That's who she was.
Right.
And so one of the other guys said, yeah, my wife's same way. She keeps the house spotless. And I said, well, guys, my wife is too. And my warped sense of humor, I said, yeah, I says, it doesn't matter if it's morning, noon, or night. If there's something needs to be straightened up in that house, she'll get up and do it. Really, Jim? I said, yeah. This is when I learned that women have that ability to multitask, got that special sonar when their husbands are talking. I said, yeah. I said, the other night I got about 2:00 in the morning. I went to the restroom and I come back, my side of the bed's made up. I thought it was funny. Everybody laughed except one. Guess who that one person was that did not laugh?
Wouldn't happen to be married to her, would you?
Yeah, and I almost had to walk home that night too. But yeah, because like when I go somewhere, the only time I go to Walmart, I call Walmart a necessary evil, because I prefer to do business with the individual companies, the mom and pop shops if I can. But sometimes in Walmart, that's the only place around that's got what you need at that time.
Right.
And that's about the only time I go in there. But if I go in there, I'm going to get that one thing and I'm going out. I don't care about the TVs are over here. The groceries are down over there, and over here on the far right, they're going to be changing oils and cars and all that stuff. I didn't go there for that. I went there to get that one item. I want to get in there and I want to get out of there. And I think that's just the way us guys, think when we go in there. We're so single circuit,
Right. Right.
And
That's
Donna,
what makes, that's, in my opinion, that's what makes relationships between partners so beautiful, because you're usually going to always have one partner who can be more singly focused and one that is more multitasking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also another big part of that is love and forgiveness. And I ask for love and forgiveness, and they go hand in hand for me, because I need them both, I tell you. And we all need love, because love is the most, I was telling someone today in a text that this morning I got up after a good night's rest. I didn't wake up till about 6:10, which is unusual for me. Normally I wake up between 4:30 and 5.
Right.
And I normally get up. But this morning I just slept in and I thought, well, I didn't get up and say, oh my goodness, I'm late, And it's because I worked a little late last night, about 10 and a little after 10. And but immediately I just thought, hey, I thanked the Creator for the things that money cannot buy and no thief can ever steal. I thanked Him for the heartbeat in my veins. I thanked Him for the breath in my lungs. I thanked Him for the love that I have for my family and my friends. And, I just got up and, I went into the kitchen, and I always drink water in the morning. That's a very good way if you're interested in losing weight, drink water in the morning, because your body needs it. You've been fasting all night, and that's why they call the first meal breakfast, because you're breaking the fast. And I get my water and I put on the coffee, and I go and I sit down, and I'm just sipping on that water, and it's got lemon juice in it, and I'm enjoying it. But I've got a relaxed mind, a relaxed attitude. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those times, ladies and gentlemen, when you wish that this time would just stand still.
Right.
That's how pleasant it was. And that's a good way to start your day, isn't it, Donna?
It is. It is. If we often get up and we're rushed, and there's, again, so much that we have to do, and society the older I've gotten in my life, the more I realize it's not always what it's cracked up to be. Our instant social media, our instant be able to find anything at our fingertips. And when we slow down and take stock of what we truly have, you appreciate what you have and don't miss what you don't have.
That is so true, because what's really important to you, that's most precious to you, are the things that money cannot buy. And I'd like to reach out to a person, not an individual specifically, but I imagine I just feel that there's at least one person sitting out there that's feels like they're enslaved in their life,
Right.
But the thing to do is to give thanks for everything that you've got. That's the starting point. Be thankful for what you do have.
Right.
Because I remember one of the things I was teasing Mother, and I think I made her mad. And sometimes when I did tease my mother, I did make her mad. I was an obnoxious little brat, you might say. And I tell the joke about, growing up on the farm, we didn't know we were poor till we went to town. But I was teasing her about something about, how come we don't, how come you didn't marry a man with money or something like that. And as you can imagine, that did not go over well, but I was teasing her, but she was in that reception mode. Okay. And she reminded me of the things that I should be thankful for. And I never have forgot that, because she's the one that mentioned about the heartbeat in the veins and the breath in the lungs. That's where I got that from. And I tell you, Donna, when we reflect on that, and a couple of times in my life, I should do it more often, to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. But there's someone out there that just feels like they're like a rag doll in the mouth of a dog. They may be in a tough situation. They may be in a abusive situation.
Right.
And, we've known people like that, Donna and I both have. And the fact of it is that what you do is give thanks for where you are right now, because that's not where your path is going to lead you to. It may seem like there is no tomorrow. Go ahead, Donna, please.
It's not where you're meant to stay. If you're in a situation that you don't like, you're not meant to stay there.
That's
and
right.
The reason it's preying on you is because it is your internal intuition telling you, get through this to get on with it and find where you are destined to be.
Oh, yeah. You were born to be loved, and you were born to love, and you were born to enjoy life and live life in abundance. And I'm not talking about material things.
Right.
I'm talking about good health, good happiness, and have a satisfied mind. That's what I'm talking about. And no one can rob you of that or stop you. You may feel like you can't get out the door, but yes, you can, because you've got a higher source to call on. And if you listen to that tape by Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, you'll understand what we're saying here, what we've said before, and you'll be on the path to living the life that you were created to live. You weren't created to be somebody's slave.
Right.
You weren't created to be somebody's punching bag, okay? And I don't know why that just came across me to say that, but I go with my gut feeling on stuff. And you were born to be loved and to love others. And I was telling a friend of mine, military buddy, we were talking about our mothers, and we got talking about mom's home cooking. I got to share this story if I may, and I'll turn the mic over to you. Mother always made her homemade biscuits from scratch. And oh my goodness, how I would love to sit down at the supper table at my mother's house, if it was possible, and have a home cooked meal with our homemade biscuits.
Right.
Oh man, I may start drooling here in a minute, and you may have to finish up the show, but the one secret ingredient, and I'm sure a lot of you out there know about your mom's cooking, your grandma's cooking, the one secret ingredient that they had that no manufacturer bakery or anybody else can add to their recipes.
Fact.
Your mother and your grandmother made it with hands of love.
Mm-hmm.
So for all you bakeries out there, and I'm not knocking anybody's profession or business, but you're trying to compete with mother or grandmother and baking baked goods and pies and whatever. Good luck with that. Because that being made with hands of love, you're a mother. When you make something for your children, you add that special ingredient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is one of my love languages is cooking and baking. That is one of the ways I show love. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I cook more than most people would dream of. And there's just two of us at home now. My kids are all grown and on their own. And so there's just two of us, but I still cook. And I would say my biggest problem with this love language of cooking I have is understanding that I am not cooking for a thrashing crew anymore.
Well, if that's the case, for some of us guys out there, some of us men folk, you got any leftovers?
There's usually always leftovers. So, it's just everybody understand that your destiny is to be loved and appreciated and be able to give that back. And, it's exactly what Jim said. It's not the material things. It's being able to walk outside and you see that, for me, it's the doves in the morning, cooing. And that to me is, that starts my day. I'm usually up between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, every morning. And that starts my day when the doves start, doing their song. Those are the moments that I appreciate and love, that I'm blessed to be here and in the space from inside, that I can appreciate it and not tune it out.
Amen. The reason she gets up between 3 and 4, she has to wake up the rooster so they'll know when to crow. But I'm going to share one quick little story, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Donna because she's got an interesting story she wanted to share with you today. A very heart-touching story. And yesterday, I saw something in my front yard. I live out in the country that I've never seen before. I noticed a little rabbit had come up to eat at the bird feeder. Of course, squirrels being there, that's common. And this little rabbit and squirrel, they were both eating a sunflower seed off of the ground. And I thought, wow, I've never seen rabbits and squirrels that close together, but didn't think anything about it. The little rabbit, he's still out there and he just enjoying himself, nibbling on grass and whatever. He goes over by the tree and he lays down. And I told Ellen, I said, look at, the squirrel and the rabbit. I've never seen them be that close together and eating. And they're just, not paying any attention to each other. And then the little squirrel takes a beeline and runs towards the rabbit, gets right up to him and stops. And they're sniffing each other's nose. They're buddies. I've never seen a rabbit or a squirrel be buddies. And to me, when I see something like that, excuse me, it's kind of like that's a small glimpse of the way this world was originally designed for everything to live in perfect harmony.
Right.
And I know you've seen a lot of interesting things like that. And how does that make you feel when you see that, Donna?
It just fills you up inside because for me, I see it and I think that is so amazing, especially when you see it with animals and that are supposed to be enemies, like a lion who has lost her cubs and takes a cheetah. I read an article about that. Took a cheetah who had lost its mother and raised that cheetah as her own.
Wow.
Okay. So if animals can do this, when I see things like that, my thought is there's hope for humans.
Yeah.
There's hope for humans.
It's sad that animals, Yeah, it's sad that animals act the way we should act, and we act like animals.
Right. That's true. But and it's funny. So Jim, I'm going to ask on behalf of myself and everybody out there listening, keep an eye out for that squirrel and rabbit and keep us updated.
Oh, okay, I will.
Because that's just awesome. I love that.
If I can get a video of them, I'll capture it.
Oh, that'd be even better. That'd be even better.
Yeah.
So the story I wanted to talk about today, and I took notes because I want to make sure my facts were correct, is Dick Hoyt and his son Rick Hoyt. They began racing. Dick Hoyt actually began racing marathons at the age of 40, and that was requested by his son Rick when he was in high school to benefit a classmate who was in an accident and got paralyzed. Now, Dick at age 40 was not really in perfect physical condition, shall we say. His prime time days for that was over. But he's like, okay, well, here was the beautiful part about it. His son, Rick, and I'm sure some of you will recognize the names, his son, Rick, had been born with severe cerebral palsy. And he had no use of his arms, legs, or his voice. And he communicated through his computer. So that began a 40-year journey, Jim, of marathons. After that, one first for helping his high school friend, and that just about dropped me to my knees, because here is Rick, who has no use of his arms and legs, can't talk without aid of a computer. And he's asking his dad to help somebody else. What a beautiful love of himself and humanity that is. So after the first race, this was really pretty sweet too. After the first race, he told his dad he felt as though his disability had disappeared because his dad helped him in that race.
Wow.
So over the next 40 years, Dick and Rick Hoyt would compete in more than 1,000 races around the world, to include 72 marathons and 257 triathlons.
Wow.
They went to Hawaii. They went everywhere. So this dynamic duo became absolute celebrities at the Boston Marathon, and they were from that area. So together with Dick pushing Rick in his, he had a special seat on his bicycle. So when they would be, bicycling, and then he had another special one when he was running, he would push Rick so that Rick was obviously in the event himself. And then when they would, the Boston Marathon is 26.2 mile course. And they did that marathon 32 times between 1980 and 2014.
Wow. So if he started at 40, he was what, 74?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Holy smokes. And then in the Ironman, when he'd have to swim, they had designed a custom dinghy for Rick, and that it was strapped to his dad, and he would be pulling him through the water. So his dad's not only getting himself through there, but he's pulling his son too. Wow.
Through all of it, through the whole thing. They were inducted, Team Hoyt was inducted into the Ironman Hall of Fame in 2008. The last marathon, right, that Dick Hoyt ran was the Boston Marathon. He was going to, I believe it was in 2014. He was going to run in 2013, but that's when the Boston bomber hit. So obviously you couldn't run it then. And after that, he was done. He announced, I will no longer compete. His son had passed on, and he said, without Rick here, I just don't have the heart to do this anymore.
Wow.
Pretty impressive.
That's an amazing story. And his son, Rick, we don't know much about his life, I guess, before then, but when he had
what I read was that he had two other brothers, and they would go camping and canoeing. And when he was young, his dad would pick him up and take him on his shoulders, ride him piggyback so that he could go hiking too. He would take him fishing. And what he did was he would tie the fishing line to his fingers so that he could feel it. He could feel the sensation. He couldn't use his hands, but he could feel the sensation of fishing. In fact, his form of cerebral palsy was so bad that they were told, just put him in an institution, forget about him, and go on and have other children.
Oh, man.
And obviously they couldn't do that. That's their child.
Absolutely. I understand that.
Right. They went on to give him the richest life that they could. And I would say that not only they succeeded, but his brothers succeeded in helping and being a part of that. And Rick himself succeeded because he looked beyond his disability in that he could do something that would free him. And what they did together was they brought such an awareness, Jim, to disabilities in marathons and triathlons, Ironman. Dick said that when they first started, everybody looked at him like, what are they doing here? They don't belong here.
Yeah.
So they opened the doors for people with disabilities in a huge way that couldn't be done from just talking at a pulpit, if you will. Right.
That's really amazing, because I was thinking about Rick there, the young man at cerebral palsy, and the very first thing that he looked for a way for his dad to do something to help his friend who had been involved in an accident. And that's the first step in the right direction when it comes to success. To be successful in anything, you look external.
Right.
So many people look internal,
Right. And Rick knew he couldn't run it himself, but he said, Dad, can you help me in this? And can we do it? So they did. And that was the onset of an amazing life and an amazing adventure, and of bringing such humanity and dignity to something that at that time was not accepted. And now it's more accepted because of who they were.
Oh, yeah. And I love the story you shared yesterday about, Superman. And what an inspiration it was, because he had every reason to be bitter in life.
Oh, yeah.
How old was he when that happened? 42?
Yeah.
Superman? Yeah.
I believe he was 42.
Christopher Reeve, yeah. And because I've seen the accident that he suffered there on replay on YouTube or whatever. And he's riding a horse, and they're going to jump this fence.
Right.
And the horse gets right up to the fence and just stops, and he went over the top. And you shared some facts yesterday. It blew my mind. He landed on his head, but 1 centimeter to the left, I think you said, it would have killed him.
He would have been dead instantly.
But it was 1 centimeter to the right, and he was paralyzed from the neck down.
No,
but then
1 centimeter to the left, he would have been dead. 1 centimeter to the right from where he fell, he would have got up and walked away. Right.
And it's really amazing, because it just paralyzed him from the neck down. But he could have very, very well been embittered. Why me? He was a accomplished horseman.
Oh, yeah.
And he could have, everybody would have felt sorry for them if he'd have said, if I just hadn't have got on that horse, if I just, why did I even get on that horse? Yeah, I'm Superman. I've got my career made. Why did I even get on that horse? He could have lived in that. He could have
arena.
let that just consume him like a fire.
Well, when I read his book, Still Me, he
Hmm.
was pretty angry in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You have to go through those emotions. And
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say here, folks, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to say, why me? Damn it, why
Yeah.
me?
Oh, yeah.
I've been there. I have been
Mhm.
there, folks. I know what that feels like. But what I will tell you is it is not okay to live in that space.
That's right.
Because here's the other thing, when you live in that space, and this is what was so beautiful about Rick, I'm sorry, Dick and his wife, and they had been divorced for many, many years, but they still parented. But when you stay in that space of negativity, you are
Mm.
teaching your children that this is how you handle life. When life gets tough, you get mad, you get angry, or you stay sad, and you
Mhm.
live in that zone and you don't come out of it. You're not
Mhm.
teaching them coping skills. You're not teaching
Mhm.
them, okay, things happen and it really stinks, guys, but this is how we're going to move forward.
Mhm.
This is
You
how we're
don't,
going to move forward.
yeah, you don't drag that baggage along with you. And we were talking about Bill Heinrich there in the accident. Him and a friend got rear-ended. The first time I've ever heard it, but he shared this with us today on the radio show. And he said, it kind of shocked me when he said it because I thought, wow, that's kind of unique. Because he says the very first thing me and the other guy did, they were on their way back from a speaking event, and they're very much in tune with energy, love, releasing all negative things out of your life and all that. And they do a very good job of it. He said, we got an accident and all that, but the first thing we agreed on, we were never going to talk about this accident again. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why? You know, because I'd never heard this story before.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
said, because if we stayed in there and we talked about why did that drunk run into us? We didn't do anything wrong. We're going down the road, minding our own business. I mean, and then it started clicking. I understand now because the moral of that story is if you continue stirring up stuff in your life that you don't want anyway, what do you do with stuff you don't want anyway? You throw it out. So
Hmm.
why are you there stirring that stuff up for?
You
I
know,
mean,
being stuck in when life happens
mhm.
and not understanding that there's a lesson to be learned, a
Oh
gift
yeah.
for me in my situation, in what I went through. When I got through it, it became a gift.
Mm,
It became a
yeah.
gift so that I could help other people and say, not from some textbook point of view and say, well, I studied this and I know. I mean, because I've lived it. I know what it means to get hit sideways with prognoses of your health. And I'm
Oh yeah.
raising 3 children on my own and I'm trying to be okay, but I'm scared to death. I'm depressed. I'm everything. So I know what it's like to come on the other side. But you
Mm,
know what? It's a lot of work and it kind
hmm.
of sucks getting through it sometimes. But
Yeah.
man, I got to tell you guys, the reward is amazing because
Oh yeah.
I I told my children this all the time growing up, and it was funny because when I was in the worst part of my depression and being scared
Hmm.
of my diagnosis, I'd always told my children, watch pointing that finger because you got three coming back at you.
Oh yeah.
And I had to tell myself that, a grown woman, I had to look in the mirror and say, well, dadgummit, Donna, you're doing it to your own self. You're
Yeah.
pointing a finger and you've got three coming back at you. And
Yeah.
it just, when you let it go, you become so much more.
Hmm. There is one comment I used to hear from time to time, and I'm glad I don't hear it much anymore, but people demonstrate it. And that comment is, don't do as I do, do as I say. Oh, And that's never milked the cow at night. I mean, it
No.
just won't. But it's there. You can see a self-justification.
Mm-hmm.
I've justified how I'm going to be, but don't you dare be that way.
Right.
And we all know growing up, we learn from our parents by not what they say, but what they do. And that's why when I did things that I shouldn't have done, my dad did not spare the rod and spoil the child. Yeah. And his actions were very clear
Right.
in between the ears that is a big time no with him. And I remember one. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jim. Well, I was just going to say, instead of, and I know exactly what you're saying. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Explain to your children why they're in this position and that there is a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you need to use yourself and you've been there, that's okay. Yeah. Because it lets your children know you're human. It lets them know that, you've been there and you know what you're talking about. And that path may not have worked too well. And if you see somebody going along that same path, you can head it off.
Oh, yeah. One of the big mistakes, too, that parents make is that when they see their child doing something that could be dangerous, they'll yell at them. And then they'll say, "What's wrong with you?" And the kid really doesn't understand the danger and say, "The reason I yelled at you, I was scared because I was afraid you would get hurt because this is the danger that I don't think you understand." And that way the kid can at least understand and appreciate where you're coming from. And I always crack up when I think about my dad's comments to me when he'd say and Donna, you've heard this 100 times from me about, "I don't know about that, son. That looks like a good way to skin your ignorance."
Right.
He spoke in country English. Okay. That's just the way he expressed himself.
Well, simple explanations help so much. When my children were toddlers, and they all go around and they touch on everything, the counters, and they come across the stove, right? And I'd say, "Oh, don't touch that. Don't touch that." And so I finally just picked him up one day and I said, "Sweetheart," and I'm holding him, and I turned the stove on so where it got good and hot. And I said, "The reason you can't touch this is where we cook the food." Now, and I put their hand over it with my hand, like this. And I said, "You feel that heat?" And they're like, "Yeah." I said, "That will burn your little hand and you'll have a big, big owie." Mm-hmm. That was all it took. They never touched the stove again.
Exactly. And, it's really important for us to communicate clearly our feelings. We got about a minute left, Donna. And I tell you right now, this show has been a lot of fun for me. And I always enjoy doing shows with you. And I tell people that this is my most favorite show of the week because it's my last one. I do 6 shows a week and, 5 here on E360 TV, Monday through Friday, in my radio show. But really, people ask me, and they said, "Why do you do that?" In fact, I was talking to a lady that we know very well, and she says, "Why do you do 5 TV shows a week? That's just way too much." And I said, "Well, I enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. I really do. It's my calling to be able to use my ability, my talents. Not everybody, likes me or likes my style but there's nothing wrong with that because not everybody will like your style or the way you explain things. But point being, there's someone out there. If you just reach one person,
that's it.
We were talking to that young lady that we're going to be on her TV show. Mm-hmm. And I think it was her that I mentioned too, when I walk out, she want me to talk about being a speaker and overcome the fear of speaking and all that, which I've got a PhD in glossophobia. And I ain't going to tell you what that is. You can look it up yourself. No, glosso means the tongue. Phobia is fear of speaking. But I said, always thinking when I'm out there in front of a lot of people, there's one person there that really needs to hear what I've got to say. So my mission today is to look around at people and talk from my heart to their heart, right, to that one person. That's my mission. Plain, simple, short, sweet, and brief.
And that's what we try and do every single week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we're looking forward to being with you next week. And it's going to be another week of great information. Yeah. And be sure and tune in with us here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Same time, same station, because we enjoy doing this and we're here for you, not ourselves.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Be blessed, everybody, and have a safe weekend.
Absolutely. Be sure and love yourself, and then you can love others. Most importantly, if you're like me, forgive yourself for some of the dumb things you've done, okay? Don't let it be gnaw on you like a rat on cheese. Have a good weekend. Bless you. Take care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.